I want to break the script on something. So I'm sure you've probably heard this in the past. Muscle weighs more than fat. BS. That is not true. 1 pound of muscle and 1 pound of fat are both still 1 pound. So it's like that age-old adage, like, hey, what weighs more, a pound of bricks or a pound of feathers? Everybody says a pound of bricks weighs more. No, they both still weigh a pound. Just the pound of feathers takes up a heck of a lot more room because you need a lot more feathers than the bricks do. We can look at that same thing too with muscle mass and with body fat. So muscle mass, lean muscle mass, if you have a pound of muscle mass and a pound of fat, the fat's going to take up a lot more room. It's going to be big, it's going to be bulky, and that muscle mass is going to be nice and lean and in a little bit of a smaller package. Welcome back to the Beyond the Scale podcast. I'm your host, Jake Stewart, and we have an awesome episode prepped and ready to go for you guys today. In this episode, I kind of titled this episode is literally Looking Beyond the Scale. So I know that's the title of the podcast, but I want to hit it home just because this is something that I run across with my clients a lot. Is they look just at the number on the scale, and that's how they judge their overall health, and that's how they determine their self-worth in a certain way. And that's just not the way that we should be looking at things. So I want to give you guys just kind of a full rundown on things to look for to really give yourself a better determinant of like what your health and fitness is actually looking like. So I'm sure a lot of you guys at home have probably been taught over the years, I know I've even been taught this before, that your body weight is a direct correlation to how healthy you are. And in some senses, yeah, that is kind of true, but there's a couple other factors at play that we need to look at. You probably just have a normal scale at home. So my guess is that everybody that's there probably doesn't have, an in-body scan, probably doesn't have access to anything like that. And all you've ever looked at is just your body weight from standing on kind of that bathroom scale or maybe the scale at the big box gym that you've gone to in the past. I'm also sure that a lot of us, myself included at times, you think of your ideal body weight. And usually that ideal body weight is probably something you weighed in like your teens, maybe in your early 20s, maybe when you were an athlete, things like that. And that's kind of, again, how you judge where your ultimate health is. So I kind of want to go over a couple of different ways that you guys can look beyond that to get a better sense of your health. And I'm also going to tell you guys a couple of stories of clients that I've had in Mission Viejo Fit Body Bootcamp that have kind of dealt with this before and how they overcame those as well. So first and foremost, I'm going to story tell. So we have a really awesome client in Mission Viejo. I'm not going to say her name on the podcast, but I'm sure she's going to know exactly who she is when she listens to this one. But she came to us just about 2 years ago now. She was a mom. She is a mom, I should say. So is a mom. She's got 3 really awesome kids. And she had just recently had her 3rd kid, like about a year before coming into Fit Body Bootcamp. She still had some of her pregnancy weight, but by no means was she super overweight or obese or anything like that. I had her come in. We did what we call a strategy session at Fit Body Bootcamp, which is basically a 45-minute kind of goal setting meeting where our clients have an opportunity to sit down with one of their coaches. We take an in-body scan, which measures their body composition. So things like their muscle mass, their body fat percentage, their basal metabolic rate, the amount of water they have. It's a really full, awesome test that I highly recommend anybody that has access to one of these machines takes. So we started with that body scan, but before the body scan begins, it takes your body weight just like a normal scale does. And within seconds, this person was in tears. She saw one of the highest body weights that she has been, especially post-pregnancy. And she was crying, and I was there to kind of be a therapist a little bit, as well as kind of her fitness coach, and I had to kind of talk her through a lot of different things. So once we got the body scan, it comes out on a printout. I was able to highlight a couple of really awesome things that I don't think she ever saw because all she's ever looked at is just her body weight. So upon looking at her in-body scan, I was noticing that, hey, she actually had an almost above average amount of muscle. This is not super uncommon. A lot of people do have a good muscle base, especially if they've been an athlete in the past. Maybe they've been diligent with working out, or they go on long hikes, or they do running or anything like that. They probably have a good amount of muscle mass. This muscle mass does contribute to their body weight being what it is, but I want to break the script on something. So I'm sure you've probably heard this in the past. Muscle weighs more than fat. BS. That is not true. 1 pound of muscle and 1 pound of fat are both still 1 pound. So it's like that age-old adage, like, hey, what weighs more, a pound of bricks or a pound of feathers? Everybody says a pound of bricks weighs more. No, they both still weigh a pound. Just the pound of feathers takes up a heck of a lot more room because you need a lot more feathers than the bricks do. We can look at that same thing too with muscle mass and with body fat. So muscle mass, lean muscle mass, if you have a pound of muscle mass and a pound of fat, the fat's going to take up a lot more room. It's going to be big. It's going to be bulky. And that muscle mass is going to be nice and lean and in a little bit of a smaller package. So that was not something that she ever really saw because she's never taken a body scan before. She didn't know she even had that much muscle. And I was telling her how proud I was that she had this muscle. And I encouraged her that, hey, with working out at Fit Body Bootcamp, you're only going to gain more muscle along the way. And we're going to continue to lose that body fat. She started to calm down a little bit. The tears kind of stopped to roll once we kind of went through this. And I think that's just a really important metric to keep. Now, 2 years later, so like I said, this happened 2 years ago. She has been a longtime boot camp member. She's super consistent. She comes in about 4 to 5 times a week, even with her busy schedule of having all those kiddos, doing soccer practices and everything like that. She still makes time to come in and get her workouts in. And let me tell you, she's probably dropped another 10 to 15 pounds of just body fat in the process and probably put on a couple of extra pounds of muscle as well. That leads me to kind of another point of like losing body fat and gaining muscle is that a lot of times when anybody goes through a weight loss program, something like a Fit Body Bootcamp program, for instance, when they start out, they might be just looking at the scale and saying, hey, when I started the program, I was 180 pounds and now I'm only 179 and I've been with the program for 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks. I've been with it for quite some time. Why am I not seeing a bigger difference in my weight? Well, the answer is pretty simple. I'm going to guess if you've been coming to boot camp 3 to 4 times a week, if you've been prioritizing protein in your diet, if you've been drinking a lot of water, if you feel a little better, maybe your clothes are fitting a little bit differently, maybe you're lifting a little bit heavier weights than you did when you first started, my best guess, even without taking an in-body scan, is that you've probably gained a little bit of muscle and you've probably lost a little bit of fat. By doing so, they literally just change places. So if you lose 5 pounds of body fat and you gain 4 pounds of muscle, your overall body weight is only different by 1 pound. But that's a huge difference in your body composition. So changing that by percentages, not even necessarily just pounds, you're changing your body fat by percentages. That's a really important metric to keep track of, and why I highly recommend that everybody that comes to Fit Body Bootcamp takes an in-body scan so they can get that full analysis every about 4 to 6 weeks, but no more than 8 weeks in between, so that we can keep a gauge on how things are looking and where our numbers are going. So it's really important to look past just looking at that scale weight because, of course, things are changing in your body. Now, if you don't have access to an in-body scan and you don't have access to anything like that, there's a couple other things you can do. So, one would be just taking body measurements. So I highly recommend taking just simple measurements, maybe around the chest, hips, waist, thighs, and arms, just kind of hitting those 5 points, just getting a simple tape measure. I'm sure they're very, very cheap on Amazon. They can probably be delivered to you today. If you don't already have a tape measure just sitting in one of your random junk drawers somewhere, like I'm sure I do at my house, take those body measurements and keep track of them. And again, every about 4 to 6 weeks, take those body measurements again, because my guess is that we're going to start getting a little smaller here, maybe get a little bigger here when those muscles are developing. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So if those numbers are changing, hopefully going down, that means that things are working and that you are losing body fat and you're probably gaining muscle, as long as you're diligent about getting in and getting those workouts about 3 to 4 times a week, drinking half your body weight in ounces of water, and then prioritizing protein within your diet. So those are really the 3 important things. And something that I just mentioned about the biceps, don't worry as we gain lean muscle mass. Like I've said in a previous episode, that just gaining muscle mass doesn't necessarily mean getting big and bulky. I know a lot of people out there are always looking for that toned look, and that's exactly what we're going for. So things like Fit Body Bootcamp in our programs, we're not trying to make you look like Miss Olympia. You're not going to be huge and jacked. That's not exactly what we're going for. But by lifting incrementally heavier weights over time, your muscles are going to get bigger. You're going to gain more lean muscle mass, which is great overall, especially as we age. So as we get into our later years, we want to make sure that we have a good muscle mass to body fat ratio. That's going to help protect our bones. That's going to help protect our bodies against all sorts of things that aging kind of throws at us. So we want to make sure that we are plenty prepared for when that time comes. Not saying that time is now, but it's always on the horizon as we all are getting older day in and day out. So I wanted to come to you guys today and just say, I want you to look not only at your body weight, but I want you to look literally beyond the scale. So keep looking beyond the scale, everybody, and making sure that you're prioritizing your protein, getting your water in, and getting your 3 to 4 workouts in per week, and you will be on the track for success. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.